Well, welcome back to the Breaking Ice podcast. My name is Josh Ferguson. This is our first episode that we're filming of our current local municipal election series. And I have my lovely guest, Alexis Peachey, on.
Hi.
And I want to give you mad props for being the first one to come on. I feel like it's not, it requires courage to do so.
Yeah, my first podcast. We'll see how it goes.
You're going to do great. Everything is okay. All right. Well, we're going to kind of go through some topics. The intention here is to have a similar interview with all the candidates so we can kind of standardize this a little bit. It's a little bit different than my normal forum, which you would be welcome back anytime, and we'll just talk about you and your life and whatever, and we won't kind of delve into all this stuff. So if you want to do that, by all means. However, we will start with a little bit of your personal background. So let's just start, where are you from?
Originally, I grew up in Saskatchewan, just outside of Regina. I was the youngest of four with working parents. Spent, summer holidays out at the lake for 3 months. It was a middle-class, wonderful upbringing. Moved to Norman Wells, August of 2003, to bartend for 6 weeks.
That's what brought you up here.
That's what brought me
awesome.
up here, yeah. Because there wasn't really anything going on in Regina. And my sister's like, oh, come on up. I'm like, all right.
What was your sister doing here?
So Kara was already up here with her husband, Jeff, working at I think both were working at the Amori at the time. Yeah. And so I came up and started bartending.
And what, at the big bar? Or
at the big bar, yes. So I bartended at the big bar for a year and a half.
Okay.
And then I skipped across.
Presumably it was a little more active then.
Oh gosh, yes. I was told it wasn't as active as it used to be, but it was way more active than it is now.
Yeah.
That was back when you had capacity of 205 in the big bar.
As opposed to?
I think it's 60 now.
Okay.
And you'd have 2 bartenders, a waitress, a DJ, and a door person on every Friday, Saturday night.
And the golf simulator worked?
Pardon me?
And the golf simulator worked?
Well, you didn't have the golf came a little bit later. When I first started there, you still was able to smoke in the bar. I worked there during the time when the smoking was removed. It was quite entertaining.
That's hilarious. Tell me about your parents a little bit. Who were they? What were their kind of personalities like?
My father was the silent type, still is. I get that a lot from him. He's strong, silent, works, likes to put in a full days of work. Mom was the same way. She worked all the time, trying to provide for us kids. Mom never met a stranger. She was one of those people that could meet somebody and a year later remember their name and who they are and their backstory. Oh, I see. Sadly, I did not get that from her. Mom was born and raised in rural Saskatchewan, whereas my father was born and raised in Regina, the city life.
Metropolitan Saskatchewan.
Yeah. They both come from, my mom has 2 siblings. My dad has 3 siblings. Mom's family, my grandmother and grandfather's family are quite large for, which is normal for rural Saskatchewan to have larger families. Dad's family, not as big. But we grew up really close to each other. On my mom's side, the cousins, my aunt's children, were pretty much playmates because they're about the same age.
And regardless of your beliefs now, was it a religious upbringing? Was there kind of
so grandma was mom's mom. They were very much invested in the church, choir, Bible study, women's auxiliary, all that kind of stuff. Mom taught Sunday school when we were younger, but it wasn't religious. Okay, it was, it was, but it wasn't. It was more moral.
Value heavy as opposed. Yeah. So, what were those values, and kind of how did that shape your idea of politics and community involvement?
everybody matters. You do what for those that you would wish that they do for you.
Treat others like you want to be treated, kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. It was very much the 10 Commandments. In some ways, like it was, honest, be hopeful, be faithful, take care of those that can't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Those kind of values. Don't put anybody down. Uplift people. That's how I feel my upbringing was about.
Okay. That's awesome. That's great. So when did you become interested in running for local office? Like, I feel like I'm not sure anyone as a young kid is like, I'm going to run for local office. You know what I mean? So like at some point there's a turning point when you're like, this is what I'm going to do.
So I've always been fascinated with politics.
Yeah.
Especially no surprise, the difference between Canadian politics and American politics.
You can shorten the top of those if it's falling off.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. All right, give that a try.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Is that much better?
Much better.
Yeah, perfect.
I was always fascinated with the politics, with the history. Mm-hmm. Maybe hand in hand history of Canada and politics. It was not really on my my thought of actually running for council.
And did you become interested in politics after you came up to Northern Wales or prior to?
More so coming to Northern Wales,
okay.
Just because you're so isolated. You get to see, you see the difference between how things are done in the North compared to mm-hmm. the South. Like the South is party politics.
Sure.
Up here, it's you have your regional election, and then it's your premier's picked out of who you have as MLAs, right?
Well, the other thing that at least my observation is in terms of the politics up here is since it's such a smaller place, you kind of know the players.
Yes.
Right? Which is a big, big difference between politics in a larger place and politics in a smaller place.
Correct. Yeah. But I also too feel that here, because you know all the players and it's not really party specific.
Yeah.
You get to vote on who has the same morals and values as you do mm-hmm. and how they show it through their work ethic and that kind of thing. So it makes picking somebody or voting for somebody a little bit easier, but at the same time you sit there going, oh, is that easy? Because you don't have any party platform to fall back on. So it's kind of an interesting mix of.
So in some ways, having a party is useful because it gives you kind of guidelines to run it in. But then in other ways, it's kind of beautiful not to have a party because you get to be an expression of kind of your own values as opposed to falling in lockstep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have a little bit more freedom without the party.
Yeah, that
being
makes sense.
More true to yourself and your own values. And
I'm sure that makes things really simple. So how long you're currently a counselor?
I am, yes.
And was this your first term? How long have you been a counselor?
This is the second term for me. The first time I ran, I was kind of apprehensive. Oh, maybe I'll get in, maybe I won't. I want to see, we're coming off of some tribulation in Northern Wales. And I thought I could, be a voice of reason, make a difference. So when I got in, I was like, oh my God, they actually want me here, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
The second time was, okay, they might keep me here. They might let me be in for another 3 years. It's always like, a surprise when I get elected. Sure. Just because, there is so many other people that step up. So
also it's vulnerable to say, hey, choose me,
Yeah. And I'm one of the candidates that don't make promises. I don't make promises about situations, issues, certain topics. I make promises that I'll do hard work. I'll research, I'll make the best decision I feel is the best decision.
More of kind of like process focused as opposed to outcome focused.
Yes. Yeah.
I think there's actually a lot of value in that.
Well, there's 7 people at the table. You're not one. So, you have 7 people with different opinions, ideas coming from different directions. And sometimes it's great to hear those extra opinions so that you can, you know what, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. But I don't see it that way. I kind of see it going this way, but yes, take your idea and, kind of.
Well, in a perfect world, a group of 6 people would aim at what's truest through dialogue,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Now, everyone knows we don't live in a perfect world.
No.
Okay, well, let's move on here. We're going to talk about what are your primary motives for running this time?
To keep up what we've been doing.
To keep up what you've been doing, what have you been doing?
So we made quite a few, we've gone from a dump to a landfill. And yes, change. Not everybody likes
but that
change.
is also progress. There
is, it's, and we haven't quite got where we need to be, for both, fully onto regulations for the environment, but also what makes all the residents happy as well. So there's still some work to be done with hours and what we can take, what needs to get out of here, those kind of things. So the landfill's one. There is a lot of, trying to think of the word I'm looking for here. There was back in the day, there was a lack of putting money into aging infrastructure. So there's reinvestment into buildings, infrastructure. So we're slowly doing that. And we've done a lot of the plans and the background stuff that you have to do before you can get funding.
I see. So you've laid a lot of groundwork for these things to come to fruition, but it has yet to reach it.
Yeah.
So you'd like to see it through.
I like to see it through, continue going though, that route.
I actually think it's really if I were to design the system as a, all powerful person, I think in terms of a group of 6 counselors, it might be cool to do offset elections 3 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that way you do kind of get that follow through and that continuation. Imagine if all 6 people got replaced, then it's you have no
continuity.
Yeah, no
what is it? History that bringing forward the
and
knowledge.
You'll do you'll meet and talk about it for a day, and it's but how could I possibly communicate
there's
all
so
the
many
little
nuances, things that have been done, things that have been tried and failed, all those kind of stuff.
All right, well that's not what we have. So you want to run as a through line, and you want to follow through on the projects that you've set in motion.
Yes. But also we've done some, we have some newer stuff. We created the Advancement of Equity and Inclusion Committee, which has a long road still to travel. It's so new. And I think we've done some work. We've put in place a more detailed harassment and discrimination policy for the employees, so they're protected more. We're changing language in bylaws, policies, and procedures, which I think take away some barriers for the underserved members of our community, Indigenous, the new Canadians, even women, because some of the language was very masculine. We live in a world of, there's certain things that have been put in place for so many years. It's hard to break out of it.
Specific to Northern Wales, I could be completely wrong about this, but at least my sense is that it has been there's just been more men here than women.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just the organizational language. It's also the way some of us have been raised. Even myself, growing up in Saskatchewan, there's certain language that was used when I was growing up that has kind of come with me. And it's up to me to kind of change it. I still don't recognize if somebody's insulting me for being a woman. But if somebody insults somebody else for being a woman, I can catch it and be right on it. So it's, because there's nuance, English is such a weird language.
It is a weird language.
There's so many different ways of people saying things. So, I am very much try to get everybody on to being inclusive, being, equal to each other.
Well, you want to be polite. You want to have manners, and you want to, those kinds of things are rather important.
Yes.
Even though
and lower barriers. There's so many barriers in some policies that you're sitting there going, they don't need to be here.
Yeah.
And some of it is language. Just change the language and how it's read.
That's great.
Or written, I guess.
We kind of jumped into this already. So what specific issues in Northern Wales are you passionate about? So you were talking about advancement of equity and inclusion. What else along that, not that particular vein, but what else are you passionate about? What issues?
You'll find I'm passionate about community service. So even if I wasn't on council, even before I was on council, even if I don't get in this time, you'll still see me volunteering at any and all events that I have the time to do so. Because I think I was volunteering when I was 10.
Okay.
Back then, going for...
It's a value that's been ingrained in you.
It's been kind of, it's part of who I am to always reach out and go and help.
And what is it about volunteering that kind of brings you to life?
It's a sense that you're helping someone. Not necessarily like huge things. It's just you've made somebody smile that day. It kind of, it brings you joy. It's one of my internal, I made them happy.
Well, no, I very much agree with that. I feel like the difference between like doing things that have a massive impact versus kind of like, but then in the rest of your life not kind of behaving very well, versus having a steady positive impact over time. Yeah, I think the steady positive impact will have a much, much larger impact in the long run.
I think it does too, and I think it actually impacts both parties. Yeah, the person doing the volunteering and the person you're helping, or the organization you're helping out with. I think it's a relationship that goes full circle. Like it helps both parties grow, both parties accomplish something. And yeah, it's near and dear to my heart to do the volunteering. No matter the weather. I'll, to some degree, I'll continue trying to be part of like volleyball, softball. I can't play either because I have a damaged knee that causes some issues with sudden movements.
That's fair, but I think just recognition that those things are valuable and they do, bring community and people together.
It brings the youth in, which is exciting. I love watching the youth play. I'm on the Regional Wellness Council, which is amazing. We've been talking about changing how, mental health and addiction services are being provided to the SOT 2. We're in the middle of doing that. So that's kind of exciting to be a part of, to see the feedback and see what we can do to kind of bring it back to community-centered, not so westernized, bring it back to traditional ways with a mix. Sure. So it's kind of neat to be part of that. I really enjoy doing my volunteer work with Santa's Anonymous. I think it's, one of those things that's going to probably get bigger, more important as the years go on. And of course, my advocacy for advancement of equity and inclusion. That's who I am. I want to see everybody included. I want everybody to be on equal standing. I feel that the world is a better place when everybody is included and has their voices heard. So that's my biggest passion, is that.
Okay. What is your long-term vision for Norman Wells, and how do you plan to make that a reality?
Long-term. Be a community that helps each other, a community that, that comes together during hard times and good times, and supports each other. I see, perhaps more, maybe supporting more Indigenous voices so that there is more traditional ways of life being brought in to Norman Wells. When you look at the rest of the communities in the SOT 2, we are a little lacking on some of the stuff that residents get to enjoy compared to the other communities. So it'd be kind of nice to see that kind of brought forward a little bit more. Not necessarily a Town of Norman Wells project,
you're saying
but supporting
support residents to be able to bring those initiatives forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and I've been thinking about, I have one idea that I've been thinking about over the years, and I didn't know how it was going to go, but I've been in a few meetings this last 6 months, and it seems to be on everybody's mind. More interagency, more collaboration between different agencies.
I think that's a mandatory thing.
I think Norman Wells could do so much if you bring every group together. We have so many people doing different wellness programs, but sometimes they can't be consistent with them because they don't have the support. So it'd be interesting to see about bringing everybody together, collaborate. And then, some groups will have the support to be able to always be consistent. Other ones will get ideas or be able to be the ones that are doing the supporting. So that's kind of my hope for the future into Norman Wells.
Yeah. Well, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but Norman Wells is comprised of such a diverse population. So you have camp, rotational workers and long-term residents and then like the kind of like 3 to 5 year transient people who
Yeah.
come and go and whatnot. So how would you balance the needs of all of those people together?
Oh,
I know it's a complex question, but like at least how I understand municipal government to be, the municipal government is in charge of making sure that everyone has those basic needs met.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would view it as if like municipal government starts to like, I don't know, favor, one group or whatever, like the idea is that it needs to be equal.
Yeah.
Right.
So like, I think we're doing that right now because Northern Wales has always been very transient.
Sure.
Rotational is a little bit higher now than it was.
Yeah.
But it's always been to some degree transient. Trying to keep property taxes lower and maybe upping, the fees on water is one of the ways, because water, you get to choose how much you're going to pay based on what you use. So that's a way to try to keep things more fair across the board. So the transient and the locals and are on the same kind of.
I see it. It kind of,
for the same
instead of
source.
just taxing homeowners, it taxes everyone who's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of, so the homeowners that actually have, paying taxes aren't, left with trying to fund everything the town does.
Yeah.
Because that's how the town funds things, is through property tax. Some funding lines, but property tax is a big one. I also feel that, having the recreation programs, having different wellness stuff going on is a way to ensure that everybody is able to participate in things in Northern Wales, because not everybody likes sports, but some people like to sew. So having a variety of different recreational things is a great way.
Sorry to jump in here. Just in my experience, I've been here for 3 years. I think. And I have been impressed with the amount of ongoings that have happened here. And it feels like I didn't really have an understanding or expectation of exactly what it was going to be like when we moved here. I knew that, my wife and I could be resilient in kind of whatever situation. So we were excited for the adventure, but it has been so beautiful and engaging to, like, if you don't have like, dinner to cook for kids every night, you can literally basically be doing something community wise almost every night.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty wild, actually.
Yeah, we like, it seems to always there's always seems to be something going on. Luckily, Northern Wales still has a huge volunteer base. Some of them are getting a little tired. It's harder sometimes for you to get them always come out.
Yeah.
But there's groups and organizations that try their best to ensure that there's different things going on, which I think is important, because you're grabbing different people from different walks of life, bringing them together to have that sense of community. And I think that's a huge thing, is bringing people together that maybe never met, but all of a sudden they both are interested in sewing, or they're both in, volleyball or softball. So it's kind of a way to get the community together without.
And at least in my experience, for me, and what kind of pulls me out is the sports. And that has been the biggest kind of like, clash of worlds, at least in Northern Wales for me, in terms of meeting new people and getting to know other people. And it has been like softball has been incredible for that, because it's such high participation. Oh yeah.
It's everybody wants to play softball. Sometimes life gets in the way.
Sure.
But it's great. It's a short season, so you try to play as many games as possible, and,
it's a blast.
have some fun. Remember, it's just, it's just a beer league.
That's
put
hard.
that in
it's
quotes,
hard to remember that. All right, let's jump into the next section. So governance and leadership. So define what leadership means to you, and specifically in the context of municipal government.
So leadership means to me somebody who is willing to get in there and do the work, but also be able to see the big picture on where the work really is required to be done. And be able to multitask. You got to be able to talk to people. You have to, be able to sit and have a conversation and understand where that person's coming from. And take in, you have people that are different, from different backgrounds, walk of life. And you got to be able to see, what would be best for every single person. You can't make everybody happy at all times,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to do your best to, ensure that if something there happens, you're doing the best, making the best decision, informed decision for that at that time with all the information you have. Governance in Norman Wells, like municipality, you have your infrastructure, you have your water and sewer, you have safety and well-being of all the residents. So those are your main focus is on those items, making sure people have what they need to have a happy, healthy life.
Yeah.
So, it's important to be a leader that sees all of it. And then be able to pinpoint where it needs improvement, changes, that kind of thing.
Cool. How do you handle conflicts in a professional setting? And if you can, give an example.
Okay. I don't think I can give as much of it. Like, I guess I could try.
You could leave out names or whatnot.
Okay.
That's fine.
So,
you don't have to be like.
So when it comes to conflict, like there's always going to be conflict.
Sure.
I've learned in the last 6 years to take 2 steps back, take a deep breath, and then think through what just happened, the situation. It's a way for me to process because, there's a lot of negativity that is thrown at you being on council from different directions that you never knew you were going to get it from. And so you have to kind of figure out a way to process what actually is the problem, not necessarily the words, but why you're getting that negativity. So I find the 2 steps back, take a deep breath and kind of filter through what you've been, what you hear or what you've been told. And then figure out where to go from there and kind of make a plan on how to go from there. As a woman I've been the only woman on council for the last 6 years. There has been, issues being recognized as a counselor just because, I kind of get pushed back sometimes. And it's not colleagues. It's sometimes, people that come to meetings. They don't see you as a counselor. So there's been a little bit of conflict there with making sure I get my voice heard and reiterating that I am a counselor. Yeah.
With kind of making sure
I'm supposed to be here. My voice is, important.
The really where that can really spiral is if you feel marginalized and then that makes you shrink back. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very important when it comes to those types of conflict that I step forward.
Yep.
So those are the only times you'll see me really step forward during conflict is if I feel, I'm not being heard. But if there's conflict, usually I take a couple steps back, take a deep breath and see what the actual issue is.
To kind of process
it kind of diffuses the situation. You don't want tension. You don't want angry tension. You want to be able to be constructive and actually fix the problem.
Yeah. Can you be impartial if you work with people you dislike?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Do
you have strategies for that? Maybe you can share some of them.
I've always been really good at, I compartmentalize a lot of things. I think I've done it a lot in my path, like, throughout my whole career, no matter what career path it's been.
Yeah.
I've been really good at removing, like, I'm an office manager during the day. I'm really good at, okay, this is my office manager hat. Yeah. This is what, all I'm dealing with at this point in time. This is my hours. The personal Alexis doesn't fit in to any of that. I kind of remove compartmentalize. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you wish you didn't.
Sure.
But I find it mentally easier for me to, okay, this is the hat I'm wearing. This is how I'm going to deal with, if I have an issue with somebody, I can, okay, but I'm not dealing with them on a personal level. It's this way.
So. Yeah, that makes sense. And how would you describe yourself as being a team player during a crisis? Like, what role do you fill?
I'm there to support anybody and everybody. Give me a task to do, I'll do the task. If you need me to do the background stuff for 5 people, I'll do the background stuff for 5 people. I'm pretty much in a crisis. I want to be as much help as I possibly can without causing any, issues or slowing of actually responding. So I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. So, put me here, do not put me here.
Well, no, it's really important to be able to recognize those things, because if you don't have the, maybe confidence to step forward and say that, you can end up in doing a job that you're really bad at.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't serve the
community
at all.
Yeah, you got to know what your strengths and weaknesses are to serve the community the best way you can.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think everything's strength,
yeah,
you're missing a whole bunch.
Yeah. Sure.
You're missing something.
That's another benefit of having 6 people as opposed to 1.
Yeah, everybody can bring their strengths to the table and help support. Somebody who doesn't have that as a strength, somebody else has it. So it's you're able to work with different people with different strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's important to have that wide range of abilities.
Totally. How do you plan to involve residents in decision-making processes? I know that all decision-making processes, like, I guess if I back up, electing people to council is a decision-making process, right? But I feel like there are definitely times when, people feel like there's specific issues that they would have liked to have a say in and whatnot. And oftentimes there is an opportunity to kind of get a word in, but, they may not be, marketed well enough to, maybe people don't see it or whatnot. So I don't know, what's your view on that? What's your plan around that? And kind of how would you like to move forward with making sure that there's resident input on important topics?
So I'm a very big advocate on, as a resident, you should be reading council minutes. It informs you on how people vote, what their opinions are on certain items. It really gives you who you should go talk to if you have an issue, right? Who will take you seriously, because there is sometimes different opinions that you might want to talk to somebody else.
Say you're coming forward with a issue about equity and inclusion, and maybe you're the person to talk to as opposed to somebody else.
Yeah. Also though, there's committees. There's right now there's, how many committees do we have? 3,
sure.
4? 4 committees that council has. The council can have more or less after election. It's a council decision on what they have. So there's opportunity for residents to get onto those committees, to have a seat at that table, to have those discussions, because though they're chaired by councillors, it's not the council making the decision. It's the people there that. So
the committees are chaired by councillors, but then there's residents that are on the committees.
Yes, it's they voice what they want to talk about, what they want, what their decisions are. Yes, a lot of it goes back through council, but that's some information. Some of the decisions that get made or ideas that come from those committees do change how council looks at things. They're taking what the residents have said into consideration.
Do you feel like that avenue through subcommittees committees has been successsul?
Sometimes, other times not as much. It depends on why people get onto committees, and what they know about the committee they're getting on. Advancement of Equity Inclusion Committee, you're mandated to take a look and, fix language, remove barriers, educate yourself on the Sawtooth land, Sawtooth Dene, Métis land claim. You are looking at policies and procedures and how to make it better for everyone. Recreation Committee, a lot of people, in the past have thought it's like, you're part of doing the events, doing, what kind of, clinics or wellness programs they're going to do. No, that's not what Recreation Committee is. It's actually the infrastructure and making sure that there's a ball diamond, that the arena is still workable, how much life it has, planning for future stuff. So it's, it's interesting if you don't know what the committee is actually supposed to be doing and you get on there, you're kind of disappointed if you're on there for the wrong
Sure.
You thought it was something else. So do your homework on what committee you actually want to be a part of.
So, go on.
Oh, and another way of getting residents involved is put yourself out there.
Yes.
I am here. Come talk to me. Yes, 8 to 5 when I'm at my regular job. Please don't phone me. I have,
Sure.
But any other time, give me a call, my cell phone, my email, I'm available whenever if somebody wants to actually talk to me.
So one of the things I heard you mention was like residents reading council minutes.
Yes.
I agree. That would be wonderful, but nobody does that.
I know.
Like nobody does that.
I know. In a perfect world, everybody takes 5 minutes of their day to read what happened on the Tuesday night.
So like, at least I'm interested in kind of developing strategies and incentives to get people to be involved more, because I think, not just locally, but like our nation has an issue of people being involved in like public service.
Yeah.
And, we need to like solve these kinds of strategies and these issues with strategies in the long term for everybody. But locally, like, we know that no one reads council minutes. As much as we like to say, you should read the council minutes, like pay attention, it's really good, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. I've looked at the council minutes and I can't possibly bring myself to read them regularly. So yeah, I guess my question is like, do you have ideas about how to kind of like get those things out better? Well,
some of it too is like, okay, I'm gonna take advancement of equity inclusion committee because that's
what you're involved in.
It's kind of my baby. For the last 2 years, we've done a Women's of Excellence night, and a lot of that is trying to show that there is a lot of women that have done great things, but also women that are there to support other women. So mentorship is huge, and I think when it comes to people getting involved in local issues, having somebody there saying, hey, like, I think your ideas would be useful. You should go and talk, get involved, go listen to the, so there needs to be more of that, of like, pulling somebody up and saying, look, you have valid ideas. Like, you should go get your voice heard. You need to step up. And, I think that's one way. Another way is not just, social media, but use the bulletin boards more. Not everybody reads the bulletin boards, but not everybody is on the internet. So there needs to be a variety of different ways of getting things out to people, mail out, quarterly or something, just to, keep it in the screen is great. Kind of gives you a flash, brief information about what's coming up.
Yeah, that's a good idea. What about bullet points on the screen of the last council meeting?
Well, I never even thought of that.
That's a fantastic idea. Well, like you're driving by and it's like you could just have 4 bullets.
This is what happened. That's an interesting idea. I don't know. Yeah. Never even thought of that. A lot with the council meeting minutes, though, you have to know what was on the agenda to know. So, yeah, I guess it could work if they put, this was the topic, this was what was said.
Decision.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, like, at least, from my perspective, I can only speak for myself, but I hugely value transparency.
Oh, yes.
And I'm a massive critic when there isn't transparency and there's weird, shady stuff going on. And it's mostly people just being scared. And it's not like being transparent is necessarily going to be bad for them, but it's just vulnerable.
Yeah.
And to hell with that. You got to be transparent as far as I'm concerned.
You got to be as transparent as you can. Like, there's certain things when it comes to, land legal and employment, I think.
Yeah.
Council can't. There are certain things that council can't.
No, and that's fair. And obviously I'm not suggesting that you breach privacy or whatnot. No. But
everywhere else you can be transparent.
Yeah, but like I think transparency even means like communicating thought processes, as opposed to
how did you get to this final decision?
Yeah, and at least in my own communication, I find that that's so effective compared to just saying this is what I think.
Yeah,
it's like this is what I heard, this is my thought process, this is what I think.
Well, that's why I think too. Sitting at a council meeting is interesting because everybody at that table gets to speak their mind on a subject.
Yeah.
And you can have different opinions, but by the time it makes it around the table, you may have somebody going, I heard this person say this. And I have to say, I actually agree.
Mm.
So it's interesting, when you listen to all the different opinions and see somebody's mind gets changed in the middle of the conversation because
in live action.
In live action. I don't think a lot of people realize that sometimes happens.
Yeah.
Not everybody comes to the table with this is it and I'm not moving my opinion. Most of us come to the table with, okay, I'm open.
Yeah.
Tell me what your thoughts are, what your ideas are. How do we make this better? And let's, interweave some of our ideas. And, that keeps it transparent too. If you come in and you see that people are willing to hear what everybody else is
that makes sense.
Saying.
So I'm completely, I don't know in intimate detail the governance structure of the Sahtu. It's unique and I am uneducated in it. But given the unique governance structure, how do you view the relationship between the municipal and the Indigenous governments?
They're not as good as they should be. Can it be done better? Yes. I think there needs to be more collaboration, more partnership, especially within Norman Wells.
Sure.
But at the same time, Norman Wells is the only tax-based community governing, a area of land within the Sahtu settlement area.
So that's a unique difference compared to the other communities.
Yeah, because they are governing their own land, their own community within their own lands.
I see.
Whereas the town of Norman Wells is, the municipality is not, the owner of the land. We're settlers. The governance of the town is quite a bit different.
Okay.
It's not, it's a little bit different.
Would you say that inherent difference makes it more difficult to work with Indigenous governments? I'm just guessing at the issues here. I don't know.
I don't think it makes it more difficult. The
reason I asked that question is because you said they're not as good as they should be. So,
and a lot of it is, I think there's barriers between us as a tax-based community, and Indigenous community governments and what they can do. Mm. I think they have a stronger voice than us as a tax-based municipality. So a lot of these issues they don't need us for. Mm. They can speak directly to the GNWT or the federal government. They don't need us supporting them. We sometimes need them to support us. Mm. But collaboration, partnership, I think it helps everybody within the Sahtu.
And also if other than, I don't know, larger scale projects, but if the governments are trying to serve the people here, it would make sense to me that they would be collaborating.
Yeah. And there's things that the town does in partnership with the Norman Wells Land Corp. I would pronounce their name except for as I'm tone deaf, so I have a really hard time pronouncing.
Fair enough. That's okay.
But there's partnerships there when it comes to wellness and recreation. I think it's a good stepping stone. There's been a poor relationship in the past, so it's hard to mend fences.
Yeah.
And you can only go as fast as, as everybody wants to go.
Yeah.
And there's different priorities too. The town of Norman Wells priorities are different than, even Norman Wells Land Corp's priorities. We're in charge of making sure everybody has healthy drinking water and we have this, kind of thing. Their priorities are for their beneficiaries.
Yeah.
And those sometimes it overlaps.
Which doesn't include all the residents?
No.
Right? Yeah.
No. Which, yes, some of it overlaps, but to some degree, they're two different things and shouldn't even be considered the same.
Gotcha.
So
viewing them as parallels in some ways is wrong.
It is wrong.
Okay.
It is wrong. We should be, looked at as a tax-based community.
Yeah.
And under the CTV Act, and these are our responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And what the Indigenous community governments do is totally 100% different than what we do and what we're, responsible for. And also how we're funded.
Yeah,
we're
that makes
funded
sense.
differently too, right?
Yeah.
So,
Which means that you have different obligations, right?
yes, yeah. So, like to compare is it's not fair to the Indigenous communities, and it's not fair to Norm Wells either.
Gotcha. All right. So, kind of outlining the municipality's responsibilities and whatnot. Do you believe that the town of Norm Wells should play an active role in supporting the business community?
Oh, I do. I think we should be supporting the business community. How that looks, I'm not 100% sure. I 100% agree with some of the ideas that have been floating, because we are tax-based. We only have so much funding. We have responsibilities to residents.
Were some of the ideas that were floating, are you referring to like grants or something like that from the town? Or,
Yeah, we don't have unlimited
funds.
money,
It's
right?
tax-based.
You have to take a look at the fiscal responsibility of the town has to its residents.
Yep.
When you make decisions about contracts, when you make a decision about, jobs you're doing that fiscal year, where the funding's coming from, how much you have to pay because the funding only covers 75%. So like, yes, support. In what capacity? I still not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you assess the current support for local businesses by the town? What changes would you propose?
Ooh, tough question. Never been asked. It's been a while since I've been asked this question. I don't know what supports the businesses are looking for.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what the business is, where, what they're trying to do, what support they're looking for. I think it varies from business to business. And so like it'd be very unique. Like it'd have to be a very unique way of supporting businesses that are it's similar for every single business without being unavailable to others where it's available to.
It's complicated. Like if I were to just kind of like think about it myself, like I'm not 100% sure that supporting local business is a municipal government responsibility. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you look at so let's take a look at public works.
Sure.
Doing it in-house saves the municipality a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which means you don't need to raise taxes.
Which is beneficial for...
Pardon me?
Which is beneficial for residents.
Which is benefit for residents because their property taxes don't have to go up to pay for contractors to be doing something that can be in-house. Which
frees up space for things like, I am assuming, an emergency fund and things like
yes.
that.
Yeah. So there's, but some people, how's the word? There is, because the town of Norman Wells historically has always contracted a lot of the work out. And yes, in the last 6 years, we've taken some of the work back. And, so it looks like we're not supporting business, but our first priority is residents. So trying to keep the cost, the property tax down, the cost of running the government, and the organization down is our fiscal, our responsibility. And if you look at the budget and how much we spent in the first year for certain items, and you go look at it now of what we actually spent on our audit, it's night and day.
Are you proud of the kind of fiscal responsibility that you guys have fostered over the few terms?
I am very happy with it.
Yeah.
I think, if you don't have to spend the money, great. Sometimes you have to spend the money for the right to keep the certain level of service. And sometimes you have to take a look at the level of service and go, do we really need that high and spend that much money when we can do it this way?
And what would you say, has been the benefit of that change through your terms?
Putting more money into the water and sewer infrastructure, putting more water. Oops. More money into recreation, more money into the emergency funding. I think that's where we've, the saved money has gone to.
Yeah.
Is, into those little spots.
And you'd be blind if you didn't notice that there are urgent emergencies here rather often that we need to
Well, and we,
deal with.
in some ways, it's been in the back of the mind, but not quite 100% must get done.
Sure.
So for emergency preparedness.
Yeah. Well,
do we have
just thinking about like forest fire season and things that,
So if, forest fires, coming our way, why don't we have our own water line, like water hose sprinklers? There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Our own sprinklers, so that we can set up at different spots if we think the fire's coming that way.
Yeah.
Plus small generators that'll run them.
So all this surplus can be used to kind of purchase things like that would be used for emergency preparedness, that what every resident would support. Like, it would be difficult for people to be like, you need to support local business, but like, say those kinds of contracts are just eating up the entire budget. And then when the power does go out, you say, well, why don't you have backup generators?
Well, Well, and so like when you look at the backup generators, we need one that definitely can run the water and sewer plant.
Sure.
That, that one must be, make sure it's good
just
to go.
Just to clarify, that's important because it will freeze otherwise.
Yes. And nobody would have water.
For the rest of the winter.
For the rest of the winter.
Yeah.
So, that's a huge, making sure that we have the adequate backup for that. But a couple smaller generators during the winter would run a building for a warming shelter and communication.
That's huge.
During the summer,
cooling.
Run the, sprinklers if there's a forest fire. So it's got multi-purposes.
Yeah.
And then, there's other probably things that I can't even think of.
Well, yeah,
for
and
emergency.
Those will come up over time.
Yeah, they'll come up with people that are a lot smarter than me when it comes to emergency preparedness, that need to start being looked at and inventoried into the town's inventory to, do it. Especially with us being so isolated, the low water, the winter road will be utilized this winter more. So like, how long is it going to last?
Yeah.
And, they're predicting
really
warm weather. And
yeah.
So, there's all these little things that kind of lead into the conversations and how you're going to do this and when you're going to get it. And
that makes a lot of sense. All right. I have a couple questions about current issues. What's your opinion of the current SSI decision, and how do you view that will affect Norman Wells? I would be dishonest if I didn't say that that's on the top of most people's minds these days.
I know it is. I am disappointed with the decision, because Norman Wells does rely heavily on Imperial Oil for economic, for jobs, for funding of different services the town does. They're one of the biggest property tax contributors. They have local hires. Yes, they have rotational hires. They have people that live here. There's houses on the utilidor that are, that people are in. Yes, there's some empty, but there's people in them. And you sit there and go, okay, so what happens if they do shut down? What happens to the workforce?
Yeah.
What happens to the utilidor itself and the way it runs if you also don't have those houses being utilized? It's aging infrastructure that requires it to be used.
Yeah.
And then you look at the, are they like all the contractors, like all the different businesses that do work with Imperial, how are they going to be affected by it?
Yeah.
And what does that mean for those businesses? So yes, I'm disappointed with SSI's decision. But at the same time, looking at who voted for and who against, who you could maybe work with and have conversations with on, dealing with this issue. So that, kind of gives you a little bit of a light. There's, a chance for collaboration with those that voted no for it.
Yeah.
And, ways how to get past this, what kind of, ideas we can come up with, solutions, and
comes at impeccable timing with a change of council. That's really convenient.
Oh, the SSI decision.
Yeah, like
with
just so much at once, right?
Well, Norman Wells is the Sawtooth is facing some, I'm going to say years, a couple hard years.
Sure.
Low water, no barges.
Yeah, that's super, that's deadly.
They're predicting a warm winter. So how long is the winter road going to last? With the estimated amount of fuel, truckloads, not fuel, just pure truckloads, not even counting just the fuel ones. So how long is it going to last? Is all the resupply that you hope to get in during the winter actually going to all get here for everybody, every community? So you're concerned about cost of living. Now you're concerned about power outages and shut-ins.
Yep.
You're concerned that you're going to have to fly things in at a different price because you can't wait until you can get the cheaper rate if they're still going to continue having a cheaper rate. There's so many unknowns about fuel pricing, which makes, you have to decide if you're going to keep your house warm or if you're going to put food on the table.
Yeah.
Then there's also concern is those that have been contributing to the food bank are they going to continue contributing to the food bank?
Yeah.
Because so far it hasn't been no dime from the town has gone into it. It's all been donations and contributions. So like everything snowballs. Yeah. And the SSI decision just really put some, a big focus on all these things that are just going to snowball.
Them. Exacerbated?
Yeah.
You were kind of answering this next question in that question, but what do you believe the biggest challenges for Norman Wells will be over the next 6 months?
6 months?
Yeah.
The cost of living, the cost of food, the cost of fuel. The challenge of feeding your family or keeping your house warm.
Yeah.
The service providers trying to make money to pay their employees, but at the same time understanding everybody's having a hard time, so trying to keep that themselves budgeted without going into a deficit, trying to help their own community. In the next 6 months I feel Norman Wells is going to have to get together, help each other, neighbors out, help each other out. Whenever there's a need or I really truly feel that Norman Wells needs to come together as a community, help each other, because there's going to be some hard challenges coming our way.
Are you optimistic for the future of Norman Wells long term?
I am. I know it's hard to see the light right now just because of everything, but I am. Norman Wells is full of strong people that care for each other, that love living here, love the land, love the community. So you can't have anything but hope that Norman Wells will get past this rough patch and be good, come out on the other side better than ever, stronger than ever. So I got, that's with everybody working together, and you got to have that hope.
Are you optimistic for the future of the world?
That's a little bit hard. Depends.
Well, I think the issues facing Norman Wells are, microcosms of what's going on
in the world.
So, I don't know. It's a serious question. Do you view humanity's future as an optimistic future?
I think if people start looking out at other people than themselves, I do find sometimes there's too much blinders. If I don't even know if that's the right metaphor to put on here. Thinking about yourself and not others, in community, territory, province, country. You need to look outside yourself to see what's going on and how it impacts you. And how you can either, if it's a negative impact, how you can fight against that negative impact coming your way. Yeah. With positivity. Or if it's a positive way, how you can absorb that in and, help yourself kind of thing.
Emphasize it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am concerned. It's not looking good in quite a few different areas of the world. Yeah. It's nothing new to humanity to have these issues. As somebody who's very equality, equity, and inclusive, some of it's hard to watch. Some of it's hard to listen to, the different rhetoric and the discrimination on all different levels throughout the world. And yeah, I think it's going to be a trying time. Supply chains are going to cause, some other issues. There's going to be economic issues, food insecurity elsewhere, not just here.
Sure.
So yeah, I think you're right. Normal is kind of, it's a little piece, but actually could be looked at as a bigger world issue. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say directly to the residents? And yeah, feel free to do so.
Just, I hope that they give me another chance, to run, to do another 3 years. I think I've made quite a few positive changes. As I don't do the promise thing, I only promise to do hard work and do my homework and, that kind of thing. But I'm here for people to come ask questions, get my point of view, tell me their point of view, and even bring some constructive ways of fixing things, giving me some solutions. So that's pretty much all I have. Go out and vote. Like, that's the biggest thing. If you want your voice heard, you need to vote.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's for one person, 2 people, 6 people. You need to go out and vote. So that's all I have.
Awesome. Well, Alexis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
To sit down with you, and I look forward to the conversations with the rest of the residents, and you're always welcome back on anytime.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.